Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. In this one, we're going to be talking about an Amaryllis. After the holidays, now that the holidays are over, you're going to start seeing some of these holiday decorations or even live plants as on clearance. And this is one of the things that I found. I was half off, and I was like, well, I know they're really cool to grow. I know they put on a great display, so I figured, why not? You know, I've never grown them before, but I think those would be a lot of fun to grow. It was only $4. I couldn't say no to that. So this particular variety is a red lion amaryllis, and I'm going to keep the top of the package just so I know what the variety is in the future. So what's cool about amaryllis is that an amaryllis bulb rather is that they'll get bigger and bigger, and they get a pretty good size to them. And once they get big enough, they actually start dividing, and you'll get more of them. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I don't mind having more flowering plants inside. You know, this is mostly grown for indoors, and I just think it's pretty neat. It's really beautiful. So the only thing is, you do have to be careful with cats and dogs. It is not safe for them. You know, you don't want them to nibble on any of the plant parts. So I'd be careful with that. So for me personally, of course, I have a cat, so I'll be putting it in a spot where Sasha can't really get to it too well. So the package came with some coconut coir here. I probably won't use it for this particular bulb just because I have my own soil, and in fact I'll put up a card up here that shows you exactly what I use, how I make my soil, and everything else. I would recommend that you watch it. There's a lot of good information there. So I won't be using this. I'll just use it in my soil because I do use coconut coir in my soil. So that's not going to be used. So I have a pot that came with it. This came with really everything you need. I will be using it this time. One of the problems though with the Amaryllis bulb sometimes is that they do get pretty top heavy. So I'll probably grow it in the container that it came with this year. But in future years, I'll more than likely have to put it in a heavier pot, so I'll be using terracotta, more than likely. I love using terracotta because it just helps to wick away excess moisture, and yeah, I'm really a big fan. But this should be fine for this year, just because you know, the bulb itself isn't all that big. It's proportionately, it's in pretty good proportion of what the bulb is right now. I just think after this year, it'll probably get too large and it'll need a bigger pot anyways. So I'm gonna want to pot it anyway after this year. So I do have a little window screen that I cut out for it. It fits the bottom exactly. I like to do this so that the soil doesn't fall out, and it's just a one and done for the pot type of thing. I never have to replace it because this won't decompose. So that's gonna go in this bottom here first. And then we're just going to put a little bit of soil in the bottom. As far as how deep you want to plant these, you want to leave about a third sticking up. Just so that the bulb doesn't rot and you don't get water too far up the bulb. So that's going to be what I am shooting for. These little pots are deceiving. They're using quite a bit of soil. Now, if you want your amaryllis to continue on flowering year after year, then you will have to fertilize it. If it's just going to be a one-year thing and then you're just going to toss it essentially, then you don't have to worry about fertilizing. But of course, I like to keep things going and have them get bigger and bigger and get older and older, and you know, I just think that's kind of cool. So I will be just using a good soil in here that's going to keep everything fed. You know, that's why if you use the coconut coir, you don't even have to really add anything to it if you don't care about getting it again or getting it to bloom again next year. Just because this is not gonna have any nutrients in it, but my soil will. So let's test fit this. Yeah, so I feel like that level is pretty good. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more in because the soil is also going to settle. And I'd rather plant something too high than too low. That's even with fruit trees. I do that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of planting things too high because they tend to settle down anyways, and that's going to be the same thing with this. Like that. Settle down a little bit. If you see any crispy, dry roots on the bottom of the bulb, I would just remove that. These roots look pretty good, so I'm just going to leave it. But if you see some dry, crispy roots, just remove them. Yeah, so that's better. Now I'm just going to put some soil around it. Ooh, hopefully without making too much of a mess, although that objective is already failed. So the minute where you're going to put this is somewhere where it gets bright indirect light. You don't want to put this in direct light because if the light touches the flower itself, it's actually going to fade the flower. So you don't want to have it be in direct light if you want, the flower to last, which, I mean, that's kind of the purpose of growing it, right? So don't put it in direct light. Bright indirect is perfect. Little worm right there. I don't mind that. Worms are good in soil. They prevent me from having to worry too much about fertilizing. They're here to help. So as far as watering goes, you want to water regularly when it's flowering and when it's growing its leaves. But during when it's dormant and it doesn't have any foliage on it, and you've cut the flower stalk off and everything else, then you're not going to want to water this. You want to just leave it dry. The bulb itself is going to have plenty of water in it, so that once it becomes time to grow again, the bulb will tell you. And once you start seeing some growth on the bulb itself, that's when you can start watering again. Okay. I'm not going to pack it down much, but I will make sure it's filled up all the way, just to kind of help with some of the settling that it's inevitably going to do. Sits down a little further. I'm actually realizing that I planted it maybe halfway. I let half of it sit above the soil, but that's fine. I'm not too worried about it. The majority of the bulb is going to be under soil and the roots and everything else. But like I said, this is also going to settle, so I would rather err on the side of planting it too high than too low. It's kind of a small pot. I definitely think that after this year, it's gonna outgrow it already. It's not that big of a pot. This has plenty of nutrients in it. It has coffee grounds in it, something to decompose. It has bark in it already, and like I said, the worms that'll help decompose everything. It has the eggshells in it for some extra calcium, which will take years, but that's okay. I don't mind that either. So I'm not going to mulch it right this minute. Once it's been watered a time or two, I will mulch it with a little bit of my shredded bark that I use for my soil as well, but I'll put some of that on top just to kind of make it look a little bit neater. But that's pretty much it. I will show an update when this guy starts flowering. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be beautiful. Alright guys, so thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the update that will come in a couple of months. And we'll see you in the next one. Tot de volgende keer.